Alright, folks, buckle up because we are diving into the first theme of Unit 1, how Native Americans adapted to and transformed the environment before Europeans crashed the party in 1492. Picture this, Native Americans were the original DIY experts. Due to the diverse climate and geography, they had a variety of production methods and resource dependencies. Let's start with the agriculture hotspots. It's like a historical episode of Top Chef, but with more corn and fewer judges. First up, maize, the superstar of Native American agriculture. Maize, or as we know it, corn, made its way north from Mexico to the southwestern U.S. The Pueblo people in the southwest were like the ancient architects, building permanent stone and adobe structures around 700 CE. These guys weren't just playing with Lego, they were constructing skyscrapers of their time. These structures housed large populations, and to expand maize cultivation, they built elaborate irrigation systems. Besides maize, they grew beans, squashes, and sunflowers, basically the original organic farmers. So imagine the Pueblo people chilling in their adobe homes, munching on their farm-to-table veggies and feeling pretty cool about their sustainable living. Now let's move to the Great Lakes region. The Native Americans here were influenced by the plains, fertile soil, and warm, humid summers, making it a perfect spot for agriculture and settled villages. The Iroquois in New York State were rock stars of democracy, forming the Iroquois Confederacy. This highly democratic setup helped them promote peace and cooperation among various nations. Fun fact, the Iroquois didn't call themselves that, it was the name given by their enemies. They called themselves Haudenosaunee, meaning people of the longhouse. These longhouses were like the original apartment complexes, ranging from 2.4 meters to 61 meters in length, housing several related families. Picture a cozy, extended family sleepover that never ends. Moving south, cultural groups like the Creeks and Cherokees in the southeast enjoyed a warm climate and plenty of rainfall, which allowed their agriculture to thrive. So in these regions, the Southwest, Great Lakes, and Southeast, the Native Americans formed permanent villages thanks to their flourishing agriculture. In the Northeast, and Mississippi River Valley and along the Atlantic seaboard, Native Americans were the ancient dual players in farming and hunting gathering. They developed a permanent settlements and thrived with the mixed economies. The Cahokia society in the Mississippi and Ohio River valleys peaked around 900 to 1250 CE. Imagine a mound over 30 meters high and 300 meters long. That's like a 10-story building. These mounds were residential platforms and occasionally ceremonial sites or burial sites. It was like having a skyscraper that doubled as your condo, your church, and well, your cemetery. The Mississippian culture inferred from these mounds and artifacts might have supported up to 40,000 people. They had social stratification, iron tools, and they also wore woven clothing. Talk about being ahead of the curve. Along the Atlantic coast, the Atlantic seaboard, tribes developed a brilliant planting method called three sister farming. So beans grew up the cornstalk trellises, and squash covered the mounds to retain soil moisture. It's like companion planting before it was cool. In the arid Great Basin and the western Great Plains, where rainfall was scarce, Native Americans adopted a mobile lifestyle. They were the original nomads, moving to sustain themselves. Forget your modern-day road trips. These guys lived on the move, chasing resources like pros. Meanwhile, in the Northwest and California, they thrived on hunting, gathering, and marine resources, developing settled communities along the coast. Think of it as beach living, Asian style. Sun, surf, and seafood. They had it all figured out. Picture this. Native Americans in the Ohio and Mississippi River valleys were trade network engineers. They traded extensively across the Great Lakes to the Gulf of Mexico and from the Appalachians to the Rockies. The dense river networks helped them trade across this vast area, and for Native Americans, stopping trade was like claiming wars. While for Europeans, it was just an inconvenience, like not finding your favorite brand at the supermarket. And by the way, Native Americans' trade items weren't just for practical use. They often had spiritual or symbolic significance. Think of it as trading Pokemon cards, but with way more meaning. In North America, Native American societies were relatively small scale without huge empires. Meanwhile, in Central and South America, it was a whole different ballgame. The Inca Empire in the Andes was like the Marvel cinematic universe of its time, sprawling, powerful, and densely populated. Around the 15th to 16th centuries, the Inca Empire boasted a population of up to 11.5 million, way more than all the Native Americans in North America combined. Instead of maize, the Incas thrived on potatoes, which grew beautifully in the high altitude Andes. Imagine living on a diet of French fries. Not too shabby, right? The Incas were road-building champs, creating an extensive network that used natural mountain ranges, avoiding large-scale earthworks. They were basically the original civil engineers, minus the hard hats. However, when the Spaniards arrived in the 16th century with superior military tech and diseases like smallpox, combined with internal civil wars, the empire collapsed faster than you can say Incan Empire. Now, let's not forget the Maya in Mesoamerica. These folks were the original math nerds and astronomers, developing terrace farming for their maize and even having their own writing system. But when the Spaniards came, they destroyed almost all Mayan books. Only 4 books survived, mostly recording astronomy and calendars. Then there's the Aztec Empire. Just as they were hitting their stride, in came the Europeans with their virus packages, like an unwelcome software update that crashes your entire system. The Aztecs had a complex society, were quite wealthy, and even borrowed their calendar system from the Maya. But many of the records were destroyed by the Spaniards, who tried to erase Native Americans' local beliefs. Despite their advancements, the Aztecs had a few limitations. For instance, they didn't have large draft animals like horses or oxen, which were essential for agriculture and transportation. They also didn't develop real technology. The isolation of the Americas from other continents was a significant disadvantage. Unlike the Eastern Hemisphere, where critical technologies spread more quickly, like virus TikTok trends. So, while some of the Native Americans were incredibly advanced, they were also a bit like tech-savvy hermits who missed out on some crucial updates. Now, let's dive into the differences between Europeans and Native Americans in terms of religion, gender, land, and war. It's like comparing apples and oranges. If apples were into monotheism and oranges worshipped a whole fruit salad of deities. In the 15th and 16th centuries, Europeans were all about monotheistic Christianity. It was the one God to rule them all mindset. Meanwhile, Native Americans worship various natural deities. The religious life was more like a spiritual buffet. According to the Christian Bible, God gave Adam dominion over all animals and plants. Native Americans, on the other hand, had no concept of this dominion business and preferred to be buried with their own ancestors, creating a cozy family reunion in the afterlife. Europeans often misunderstood Native American rituals. The Native Americans sacrificial rituals as Satan worship. Meanwhile, Native Americans were scratching their heads over Europeans consuming their own god during the Eucharist. Wait, you eat your deity? They thought, and you think our rituals are weird? They found it hypocritical that Europeans who conducted witch hunts and executed heretics were shocked by their own practices. Gender roles were another area of stark contrast. Some Native American tribes had women in decision-making positions. In eastern woodland Indian communities, women were the farmers, while men hunted, fished, and fought. Farming was actually considered women's work, and historically, women might have been the first farmers globally. So when you munch on that salad, thank a lady farmer from ancient times. Most Native American societies were matrilineal and matrilocal, with women owning property and managing villages. Meanwhile, European women had little public role and few property rights, often stuck in the supporting role without even a speaking part in the grand play of life. Land use was also a major difference. Native Americans viewed land as sacred and sold only usage rights akin to leasing. It's like they were the original Airbnb hosts, but for entire landscapes. They relied on tradition to make decisions and had no concept of individual land ownership. Europeans, on the other hand, were like real estate agents with a fetish for paperwork. They used legal documents to establish ownership and treated land as a commodity, leading to conflicts when they claimed exclusive ownership in North America. It was like trying to play Monopoly with someone who thinks the board is a sacred artifact. Now let's dive into the nitty-gritty of Native American warfare and how it differed from European methods. Native Americans were the original guerrilla warriors. They mastered the art of ambushes, using the natural landscape like experts, and avoided open battlefield confrontations, which they saw as a colossal waste of human resources. Why face your enemy head-on when you can surprise them from behind a tree? In contrast, Europeans loved a good old-fashioned showdown in open fields. Think of it as their version of a football game, but with more armor and fewer rules. The Europeans were like, let's meet at noon and settle this like gentlemen, while the Native Americans were like, we'll see you when you least expect it. In Mesoamerica, things got even wilder. Adult warriors were often sacrificed, and when Europeans arrived with their fancy firearms, Native Americans' conflicts intensified. The Iroquois, for example, had epic battles that turned regions like Ohio into depopulated zones. Because Native American warriors were so darn hard to catch, Europeans resorted to targeting women and children to demoralize and weaken native communities. It was a cowardly move, like going after the team's water boy instead of the star player. The Pequot War in the 1630s was a gruesome example, with the Pequot tribe nearly wiped out. It was a brutal reminder that sometimes history isn't just strange, it's downright tragic.